proposed as on the order paper. The question is that the amendment be made. And we will start with an immediate 5-minute time limit, with the exception of frontbench speeches. And I call Preet Gill.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I start by welcoming this important bill, which will introduce new counter-terror style powers to identify, disrupt and smash the people smuggling gangs. May I take this opportunity to commend the Home Secretary on the work the government has already done to remove foreign criminals and immigration offenders at the highest rate since 2018. By restarting asylum processing to clear the backlog and redeploying 1,000 staff to work on immigration enforcement, the government has been able to deport over 16,000 people, with the last government deported just 4 volunteers. Today I want to focus on a particular aspect of this bill which I have been campaigning for a change on, which is extremely important and has gone largely overlooked. Clause 43 and 44, which introduces new offences to clamp down on the rise of 3D printed firearms. The rise of 3D printed guns is a serious threat. 3D printed firearms present a new challenge to law enforcement because they can easily be made at home. They are untraceable and undetectable by magnetometers in places such as airports and courthouses. And whilst the UK has been successful in policing gun crime, law enforcement agencies have warned they are underpowered to tackle this rising threat. So I am glad to say that this bill addresses that. Birmingham, where I represent, has regrettably become the gun capital of the United Kingdom, with nearly 600 firearm offences recorded in the West Midlands police area last year. In 2023, a local man was convicted of possession of a range of homemade assault rifles manufactured with a 3D printer in his home. That is why last year I introduced the Firearm 3D Printing Bill to Parliament. That would make it an offence of possessing and sharing blueprints to build these deadly weapons and make it an offence to possess part of a 3D printed firearm. I worked with Channel 4 and Middle Child TV on a documentary into this issue. I was shocked to find that files containing IKEA-like step-by-step guides to 3D print firearms at home can be downloaded in as little as 3 clicks from the web. And that is putting the public at risk. So I'm delighted that ministers have wasted no time in closing this loophole and introduced in much-needed legislation and backing my bill. Madam Deputy Speaker, the horrors of the Dunblane massacre in the 1990s means that the UK has got much on gun control right. I think our constituents see the mass shooting in other countries and are thankful for the strong gun controls we have here in the United Kingdom. But that has never been a reason to be complacent, and the rise of 3D printed technology in recent years has presented a novel new threat. You can buy a 3D printer for £150. And as we saw in the Luigi Mangione case in the United States, 3D printed firearms are not toys, they're deadly weapons. Some might look like Nerf guns, but 3D printed weapons can kill. And in the United Kingdom, they are growing in popularity. In recent years, we have seen several cases. In 2023, a man from Bradford was held in possession of a FGC-9 homemade automatic submachine gun, magazine and bullets. In May 2023, 2 men from Bradford and Hull were convicted of plotting to build and supply homemade weapons to criminal gangs. And in the same month, National Crime Agency officers uncovered a factory in South London that was converting blank-firing guns into lethal weapons using 3D printed parts. And early this year, the first Islamist extremist was jailed for 7 years after being found with instructions on how to build 3D printed weapons. And I mentioned the case in Birmingham, where a man was convicted of making assault rifles in his own home, similar in size and scope of the AK-47. And the point of this legislation is to limit the accessibility of blueprints and preventing dangerous people from using them, to undermine gun control in the United Kingdom and sending a strong message that the law will come down on those who want to do harm to our country. I want to conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, by saying that this Labour government came to power promising safer streets, and I'm proud that we are taking strong action to deliver on that pledge. In a weaponising world, legislation must keep pace with new technology and the rise of new novel threats. My call for a change in legislation has meant those seeking to undermine our gun controls to commit criminal acts under the radar by downloading and sharing blueprints to make 3D printed guns will now face criminal charges, and I want to thank the government for this. Turning finally to other measures in this bill, I commend the government for taking a practical approach to Britain's border security. The last government's efforts were a disaster. They stopped processing asylum cases while failing to deport people with no right to be here, meaning thousands upon thousands of asylum seekers have been left to languish in hotels and B&Bs across the country, costing the taxpayer billions. Even more self-defeating was the last government's decision to write a blank cheque out of Britain's aid budget to pay for this mess, taking away funding to tackle the crisis many people are fleeing in the first place. There is no solution to the global displacement crisis without international development. The Border Security Bill is right to focus on the smuggling glands. We need to break the business model of these vile criminals who are still shipping families across the Channel, even in the freezing cold, with no concern as to whether they live or die. This bill will equip our law enforcement agencies with the powers that they need to stop them, disrupt their supply chains, and bring most of those who profit from human misery to justice. These new counter-terror style powers... Thank